Alrighty then. This is the Zander channel. I am Chosen Nolen. We are moving on with critical thinking in chapter 14, the 4 tiers of thinking. Tier 1 will be the casual thinker. Traditional education systems do not encourage critical thinking or even teach the concepts that support critical thought to their students. This is largely because most parents and educators are unreflective thinkers, and their ignorance of the elements of critical thought perpetuates that problem. Casual thinkers are egocentric in their thinking, meaning that they think their ways of processing information are sound and that they have no reason to question them. Once casual thinkers are exposed to the tools of critical thought, they must decide whether they will remain tethered to that ignorance or further pursue the concepts of critical thinking. Once they decide to proceed with expanding their knowledge and begin to reflect and begin to question the validity of their thought processes, they begin their journey towards another stage. And most people won't do this because they're just lazy and they're egocentric. Their ego is telling them, you already know how to think. I'm telling you how to think. And that ego thing is another video that's on the channel. I'll probably update that and discuss how the ego affects the critical thinking and how the mind actually works. If one is truly committed to reflecting honestly, that should increase their motivation to at least consider addressing the problems associated with their thinking. Honest and thorough reflection will not only reveal problems with your thought processes, it will also reveal the possible solutions as well. This will hopefully motivate you to continue your journey into the world of critical thinking. One has to be able to see the benefit of the work to develop and maintain the motivation to do the work. Action does not occur without motivation. Now, tier 2, we're talking about the questioning thinker. So at this stage, the thinker is no longer ignorant of the problems associated with non-critical thought. They're learning that the assumptions they make are often based upon misleading or inaccurate data and are thus questionable at best. They have also learned that some of the conclusions they make do not logically follow from the information that they have received, which causes problems when they attempt to imagine the consequences of their conclusions, if they ever get that far in their thought processes. They're also becoming aware that they have failed to notice and address problems that they have experienced in the past and have used reasoning based upon their negative stereotypes and prejudices. Thinkers who begin to question and reflect upon their thinking become aware that poor thinking patterns can have a huge negative impact on one's life. They begin to recognize the faulty reasoning that leads to chronic procrastination, negative emotional states, self-destructive habits such as smoking and overeating, irrational fears, and getting involved in unproductive relationships. As we begin to learn about how systematic and evaluative thoughts can change our lives for the better, we also realize that the process is not that easy. Change is difficult. It's outside your comfort zone, especially when it's attempting to change patterns of thought that he or she has adhered to in his or her entire life, right? You're changing the essence of the person. You're changing your thought process, which means you have to reevaluate everything that you have experienced in your entire life. The older you get, the more this is a problem. Many thinkers who reach this second tier of thought end up falling back into the first tier, telling themselves that the way they've processed information up to this point in their lives has been adequate and there's no need for change. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? There's no need for me to reevaluate my entire life and see how I could have handled something better, and how that can change my life now and better my life into the future and in this now. This is very common. It's understandable that you may want to step back at some point. Before you do, take some time to answer the following questions. Am I able to recognize any areas of my life where my thinking has been problematic? If you're older, you have plenty of times where you have done that. I've done it myself. But in order to better yourself in the future, to change who you are essentially, you need to move forward. And maybe you say, well, I don't want to change. I'm perfectly fine the way I am. If you're not striving to be a better person, maybe you should stop here in the book and just set it aside. It's free after all. It's on the YouTube and Rumble. Am I willing to explore each of these areas in more detail by writing them down and using clear and precise language, and then carefully weighing the advantages and disadvantages of working to improve these ineffective thinking patterns that I have? You need to refine who you are. Though my egocentric thinking has gotten me this far in my life, what sort of benefits could be achieved if I explained and improved my ways of thought? What are the costs associated with becoming a strong critical thinker? Why do I have a problem with change? Why do I have a problem with becoming a better person? You know, the ego mind is there to protect you, mostly from yourself. The ego mind is always in survival mode because that's what we programmed it to do. It's brainwash programming since your childhood until yesterday and today. That's what the ego does. It takes everything and it asks, how can this help me in survival? In the unknown is where you're going with this critical thinking. You're going in unknown territory. The ego is going to be triggered and it's going to not be okay with you changing fundamentally who you are. What are the costs associated with not working to become a strong critical thinker? Your life has been good thus far, apparently. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made it this far. So the ego will tell you. Do you want to be a better person? Only you can answer that. You can tell me and pay lip service to it, but at the heart of it, you are going to have to make that decision for yourself. Nobody can change you but you. You have to be willing to change. So now we'll move on to tier 3, the apprentice critical thinker. A person enters the third stage of thinking when he makes a conscious choice to develop and enhance his or her skills as a thinker. In this stage, one freely admits his present thinking processes are not as strong as they could be, and that he alone is the only person who is capable of working to change and improve those thinking processes. After all, they're his. Tier 3 thinking requires us to begin to look deeply into the logical basis of problems and solutions. It also demands that we work to use clarity and precision as we formulate our questions regarding the problems we seek to solve, and to evaluate our data to ensure that it is relevant and accurate. Tier 3 thinkers learn the difference between facts and someone's interpretation of factual information, and they can identify the basis of their assumptions that guide the development of their conclusions. Those at this advanced level of critical thought can identify their own prejudicial beliefs as well as the biases of others and recognize how they play into the decision-making process. Finally, they're aware of when their selfish interests influence their point of view. Because of this new way of exploring and analyzing thought is challenging, it often feels awkward and very uncomfortable. right? It's not uncomfortable. It's just unknown to you. It doesn't feel right because it doesn't feel the way that it has your entire life. It's going to be uncomfortable because it's outside of your comfort zone. Uncomfort, right? Outside of the comfort zone. And that's where change always takes place. Nevertheless, Tier 3 thinkers perseveres because he realizes the benefit of making stronger and better thought-out decisions and taking action with plans that have a stronger foundation built on truth and strong decision-making. Beginning critical thinkers begin the work of exploring how their thought processes developed in the first place. They recognize that their beliefs and their values have been heavily influenced by their culture, by their country, by their region, their families, their associationships with groups, with friends, institutions, such as a school or a church. They become aware of historical, religious, and biological, psychological influence as well. As they reflect on all those influences on their thought processes, they become aware of the vast power of the human mind and the seemingly infinite opportunities in front of them if they take the time to learn more about its inner workings. What exactly is possible if one can harness the power of the human mind? How can I improve my life if I learn to utilize my mind better? What do I have to do to accomplish this? Tier 4 is the advanced critical thinker. Those who develop and commit to a plan of routinely practicing critical thinking enter the advanced stage of the process. Like the other two stages that move one beyond Tier 1 thinking, it is a challenge to remain in this stage because the effective critical thinking takes time and energy, and there is often a lack of external support because very few people appreciate it. You're seen to be critical, right? You're that critical person. I don't want to talk to him because he's always analyzing what I say, and he's always shooting me down because he has these facts that disprove my theory because, so-and-so on CNN or another news network like Fox told me this, and I am holding that as a fact. And then when I talk to this person about those things, they shoot me down because the critical thinking person has facts and they reevaluate what the media is saying and shoots it down because it's not a fact. It's a misinterpretation or misrepresentation of the facts. You'll find that you're going to need to inspire yourself to practice the tenets of strong critical thought regularly. Regular planning, working your plan, and reflecting on your plan and activities will do much to keep you on track. Now, remember though that practicing critical thinking is a lifelong practice and that it's best to always keep in tune with the fundamentals of the work. Learning the essentials of critical thinking and practicing them daily, go as slowly as you need to go to master the techniques mentioned in here. Trying to take in too much information in a short period of time will burn you out and may cause you to just give up. This is no hurry. As I said, this is a lifelong process. Take your time and enjoy the journey. You don't have to jump to Tier 4 right away. So some of the activities you can do to keep your critical thinking skills sharp. You keep a working journal and refer to it when you have a few minutes of downtime. You can record your thoughts in your journal in either paper or digital format. So with today's technology, there are many ways to record your thoughts right into your computer, your smartphone. Either way you choose, make journaling a regular practice. Your entries do not have to be long or involved. They can be short as a few words or phrases or as long as several paragraphs. What should you write in your journal? It's used to record the reflections about what is in your mind. Perhaps you could spend some time answering any one of the following questions. And you write these in the first page of your journal and keep referring to them. When was I most satisfied with my thinking today? When was I least satisfied with my thinking? Did I experience any negative emotions today? And what were my thoughts associated with those particular emotions? Can I adjust my thinking to change my feelings about what occurred to stimulate the negative emotion? What did I do today to further my goals and to support my core values? What could I have done differently today to better support my goals and my core values? Because during this process of critical thinking, your core values will change. You will change essentially who you are, because you'll have to reevaluate everything about your thinking and about your way of life and about everything that you're doing. Because doing things is an action, which originally became and started as an idea, which became a thought. So your core values are what you think you are. And if you reevaluate those, you're going to change who you are essentially at your core. And usually it's going to be for the better, because it's going to more align with the truth, because you're going to have facts to back that up. So what have I done today to confront one of my thinking errors, such as a stereotype or a bias? You can also use your journal to describe a new question or a new problem and how it's affected you, what you think you need to do to begin to address it. Because if you come up with a question or a problem set, it may take a few days to work through it. It may take a week. Some big ones, like a core value that you have and you've had it for 30 years, you're going to have to rethink that whole thing, which is going to go through a lot of the process. It could take a month. It could take 2 months. It could take 6 months. Maybe it'll take a whole year. But if it's your core belief system, and your core belief system is based on fraud, then that's who you are at your core. You're non-factual. You have no evidence to back up or support your core belief system. And this is one of the reasons why the powers that be are trying to keep you from critical thinking. It's not taught anywhere. The most important point to understand about journaling is there's no right way to do it. Make it your creation. Write in it. Draw pictures and diagrams in there. That's why I like to write mine down physically and keep it on hand. I can write things. I can make words bigger, right, immediately. I can use colors and color it in, which gives me more of a connection to the thought, right? If I type it in, I don't get that stuff, right? I can maybe find a picture online, but I cannot draw it the way that I want to draw it from my thoughts, or from my brain, from my thought process itself, right? Write it down and see what sort of progress you have made. Go back and review it time and time, right? Like when you finish one book, go back and review from the beginning and read through it and see how far you have come through that one booklet or that one notebook. Deal with one aspect of your character. For example, reflect on your egocentric thinking. Thinking of recent times when you may have discounted someone else's opinion because you thought you knew all the answers already. This happens a lot between generations. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm older than you are. You don't know crap, right? Those people in particular need to reevaluate their way of thinking, because society is not stagnant. Old ways of thinking are not necessarily the best. So you need to ask yourself, why you did that thing, and you need to question if you could have or should have handled the situation differently. Evaluate your negative emotional states. Think about a time when you experienced frustration or anger recently, and what triggered that negative emotion. What was it about that particular situation that made you feel negative? Was it because you thought about the situation and you triggered something else along a negative path that has no association with that particular situation that just happened? Because that happens a lot. You're over angry about a particular situation, and people will say that you're overreacting. And you are overreacting about that situation, but it's only because you linked it to another negative emotion in your memory. That's why you're overreacting. When people tell you you're overreacting, that's why you're overreacting. The situation does not warrant that level of emotion because you're linking it to several other negative emotional thoughts, and they're building on each other and they're exacerbating each other. Okay, what was the thought associated with that emotion, and what events in your past have led you to be susceptible to that sort of trigger? Is there a way that you can use your thoughts to counteract or decrease the negative emotion on a similar situation when a similar situation is going to arise? Spend some time thinking about your goals. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? I'm not talking about New Year's resolutions here. I mean real solid goals, which should be New Year's resolutions, but most people don't do that. If you had access to all of the resources you needed, what do you truly want out of your life? What do you have to do to achieve these particular things in your life? What sort of resources would you need to get what you want? What can you do to begin to attract those resources? Go check out my book, Habituating Happiness. Follow the channel. I'm going to get into that with combining a lot of works from Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and a few other people you probably don't know about. You need to focus on your stereotypical thinking. What are your beliefs about the various groups of people, organizations, and institutions in your world, and what would it mean to change your way of thinking about them? Why do you feel the way you do about a particular group, and why do some people feel so differently about that same group? What sort of cultural, religious, or social influences cause you and others to feel the way that they do? What would it mean to question your beliefs about a particular group? Not necessarily the group itself, but question your beliefs about that group and why that group's beliefs align with yours. Because if you're going to change your core belief system, maybe you don't need to be a part of that group anymore. And that's what's so difficult. People don't like to change. Well, I got friends over there. You have friends over there because you have a similar value. You have a similar thought. You have a similar feeling. You feel a certain way about a thing, right? That's why groups come together. They have the same mindset. But critical thinking will change your mindset. And it will be towards the truth. And you will knowingly, if you want to stay with the group, you will knowingly discount the truth to stay with friends. So what does that say about you? Who are you? How are you going to present yourself in the world knowing that you're a fraud? How are you going to present yourself in the world knowing that you have have evidence-based facts and be able to talk to those points and to think critically and to fix your area of reality or this particular world? You may be the critical person that nobody really wants to talk to, but when matters come to a head, you will be sought after, just like a preacher, just like a leader, because you have the ability to think critically and evaluate all points So, that is the end of chapter 14 with the 4 tiers of thinking. We'll move on to chapter 15, tools for critical thinking.